Hello, and welcome to Top Shelf Books, a bookcast that will hopefully introduce you to some new and different books, as well as some familiar favorites. If you want to see what I'm reading, you can always visit me at Books in Piles on Tumblr. Welcome to episode 8. Today we are going to be looking at The Octopus in fiction and nonfiction, all 8 wonderful tentacles spread out across all of the books. Imagine all the books that you could read if you were an octopus. When I was thinking about how to structure today's conversation, I was imagining what it might be like to scuba dive down into the depths and maybe come face to face with the creatures there. So we are not going to immediately approach the octopus. We are going to work our way towards the thing that we really want to see. So first I want to talk a little bit about the world that most of these creatures inhabit. So the depths of the ocean, which have really gone unexplored until fairly recently in human history. And there have been a great many books dealing with getting to the bottom of the oceans and what we have discovered there, what we're still discovering there. 2 that are really beautiful, large coffee table books, which also unfortunately makes them kind of expensive. Deep Water by Riley Black and The Marine World by Francis Dipper, both large, both full of beautiful photography of all the things that you can see at the bottom of the sea. And if you are less interested in the pictures and more interested in trying to figure out what's sort of down there at the bottom of the ocean, a recent publication is the Bathysphere book by Brad Fox, The Deep by Alex Rogers, and there's also The Deep Ocean, Life in the Abyss, Michael Vecchione. All of these will sort of create an atmosphere in which we can imagine the octopus or the giant squid, the kind of creatures that we are going to be discussing today. So now that we have thought about those dark, mostly unexplored parts of the ocean with all of the strange glimmering creatures that exist there, we should talk about natural history and learning about the octopus in terms of how it functions, what it looks like, all of those sorts of things. And there are 2 recent publications that do a really wonderful job of this. Many Things Under a Rock by Scheel, and it not only does natural history but digs into the many things that we are learning about the octopus in terms of its camouflage, medical benefits, things like that. There's also The Lives of the Octopuses and Their Relatives by Staff. You're going to see Staff appear again. The octopus is her wheelhouse, so she will be back. There's also Octopus, the Ocean's Intelligent Invertebrate by Mather. This one's a little older than the other 2, but a great overview of natural history when it comes to these creatures. And just in case you need more natural history, I always do in my life, I wanted to include Octopus and Squid, the Soft Intelligence. Isn't that a wonderful title? By Cousteau. It is, of course, older, but Cousteau is just lovely, so I didn't want to leave him out. Octopus, Squid, and Cuttlefish. So if you want to get past just the octopus proper and include some relatives. And then there's Octopus, the Most Mysterious Creature in the Sea by Courage. And this one goes very nicely with the Mather text, covering some of the similar ground, but also a different perspective on the natural history. Here shortly, we will be talking about the mind of the octopus in a little more detail. This is something that has appeared in several recent texts and really been the focus of them. But the octopus also gets singled out as something that we can learn from, and that has to do with how it camouflages itself, how it protects itself. So some texts that we can learn from these creatures. The Octopus in the Parking Garage by Verchik. This is looking at climate change and climate resilience, but it takes its beginning from the idea of one of these creatures being in a place where it really doesn't belong. The Octopus and the Orangutan by Linden is going to be a broader view of animal intelligence. And it's nice to see the octopus included there first, because obviously if you go back a little bit in time, there was the sort of belief, the more dissimilar something was from a human, then of course it must have lower intelligence. And we are now, of course, discovering that that is very much not the case. Learning from the octopus, this one is, again, broader in terms of how we can adapt nature to our own human technology. And a recent publication, Preparing the Ghost by Frank, it's kind of more of an essay than anything else, but it looks at photographing the octopus, the squid, and the first example of this and what it was like. And I really like this text because I remember going to the Smithsonian for the first time and seeing an exhibit of a giant squid, and the exhibit talked about actually it was much larger. This is, what has happened after we have stored it, and I was just in awe of this creature. And it, of course, had been diminished by the chemicals that it was stored in the case. It wasn't anything like the big, brilliant, beautiful thing you might see in the sea, but it was still amazing. All right, we've made it to a meeting of the minds, and perhaps I should have started our discussion with Proust and the squid, because it's less about the octopus and more about what it takes to read and how reading has been changed by encounters with digital text. So it's sort of a tangential connection there. The most famous book for shining light on the mind of the octopus is, of course, The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. I love Cy Montgomery's books. She's one of my favorite nature writers. Her fame is well-deserved. If you want to see sort of a fictionalized version of this, then you want to turn to Remarkably Bright Creatures by Van Pelt. And then there's also Other Minds, Godfrey Smith, that is going to look at consciousness. This one is a little more science heavy than the others, but obviously drawing needed attention to the fact that there are creatures on the planet that have emotional intelligence, literal intelligence, that rivals or surpasses our own. One of the surprising things I discovered when I was searching for more books to introduce to you that were connected to the octopus is that there are a lot of books that deal with trauma and the octopus. Who knew? So Neil Shusterman's Challenger Deep is a YA book, and sort of a confusing book in the sense that we are drawn into the characters' mental struggles and we aren't told necessarily what's true and what's not true. We're thrown into the deep end, so to speak. And the environment is one in which you might find the octopus, sort of like those deep places that we originally talked about. So again, maybe a little bit of a tangential connection, but a worthy book that nicely complements the benefits of being an octopus, in which the main character is struggling so much with choices and challenges in her life that she imagines that there would be peace in being one of these creatures. Also, God is an Octopus, Goldsmith. He's writing about the loss of his daughter, so sort of a trigger warning there for you. But writing about how unexpected loss can be healed to some extent, or at least coped with when we turn to nature. And I think that that is something that is really worth investigating. I've taught a class on how nature can heal us and how little of nature we actually need to experience some healing. So if that's something that you want to delve into, a heavier topic, but a really good title. Some other titles that deal with various types of trauma and are connected to the octopus. Gibson's The Octopus Man. Again, here we're dealing with mental illness, so a little bit of a trigger warning there. In Aaron Hortel's The Octopus and I, it's more physical trauma and again, healing experienced through nature, reaching out for that connection to nature and through that connecting to other human beings. Gina Chung's Sea Change. This is the trauma of of life just changing around you and unwanted changes that are brought to your door, and at the center, a wonderful octopus. But maybe you don't want to delve into reading something quite so long. Maybe you need some little tidbits to get you through. So, some wonderful poetry, Oceanic, and the Octopus Museum can both take us into that undersea world. Eight Arms of Inspiration, the Octopus Art Project, gives us a glimpse of all the wonder and texture and color and camouflage that attends the octopus. And then I'm including a children's book, The Lady and the Octopus, because I have a confession for you. I love natural history, perhaps you've noticed. And there's so much of it that is written for a very young audience that I really, really want written into adult form. So if someone could get on that for me, that would be amazing. But The Lady and the Octopus introduces us to the inventor of the aquarium, who is a woman, and I had never encountered her story until I started doing research to talk to you about the octopus. And I was very angry about this because I have books about the actual aquarium and I still had not encountered her story. So this one obviously geared towards younger readers, but I do think that you should look her up and look at her achievements. She also did some wonderful drawings of insects as well. It wouldn't be right to talk about the octopus and not talk about the giant squid. I love the giant squid. It's such a cool thing. It's out there in the ocean, being enormous, doing the squid things. I love to see these. I spend time on Reddit on the nature forums, and once in a while there will be, squid washed onto the beach, or people help put a squid back in the ocean, and I just get happy about it every time that those things exist. So if you too are happy that these things exist, you might want to check out the book Kraken by Wendy Williams, a really fun read. I actually read it on the beach just to be particularly scenic. It did not call a kraken from the depths to come see me. I was disappointed. I love Richard Ellis's books, so I'm going to recommend to you The Search for the Giant Squid, but he has tons of natural history books focused on the sea. Unfortunately, most of them are out of print now, but most of them are cheap. And these are really fun, not just for adult readers, but kids. They have great illustrations, so if you have a young reader that you want to share some nature with, get yourself some Richard Ellis. Very fun time. Because the giant squid was initially considered to be sort of a monster or a cryptid or a sea creature, sea monster rather. I did want to include The Science of Monsters by Kaplan. The myths that hold on to the human imagination really fascinate me. I love killer animals, predatory animals, dangerous animals, and I think part of the reason that I love them is that they conjure up this idea of monsters in the dark. I don't know what that is about my mind, but that's how it works. I did tell you that Staff would be back, so here she is with Monarchs of the Sea. You may have also seen this published as Squid Empire. Same book, but looking at the rise of the cephalopods. If you are a giant squid or are interested in reading about a giant squid, then you should know that you are going down into dangerous territory. So sperm whales like to chomp on giant squids. So I recommend for you another Richard Ellis book, The Great Sperm Whale, and then also Dangerous Sea Creatures by Thomas Helm. I don't know, again, what it is about the human mind that we are drawn to dangerous creatures. We're kind of fascinated and repelled on the same level. If you want to hear someone write some beautiful philosophy about this that is far more eloquent than myself, then you want to look at The Hunter and Hunted by Hans Kruk. I love his writing as well, but he really digs into this, why we are drawn to predators, why we are drawn to dangerous creatures, and certainly the ocean has its share of dangers. All right, my fiction readers, I apologize if you've become impatient with my natural history and nonfiction there. I'm including The Hour of the Octopus by Rosenberg just because it was such a fun find. It is sort of shaped around Japanese culture to an extent, so it's not necessarily about an octopus, but I couldn't resist including it because it's just such a unique book. And I think when you find something that's really different, then you are on some level required to pass it to other readers who might enjoy it as well. Mieville's Kraken and The Litany of the Earth by Emery's are both sort of they owe a little bit to the whole Cthulhu legend. So some science fiction, shades of horror there, shades of Cthulhu. Some other science fiction, fantasy, horror adjacent octopus is octopi. I should have learned how to do the plural of that before I started talking to you about them, but here we are. So, Crichton's The Sphere, obviously not just about the octopus, but, giant sea creatures making an appearance there. The Octopus Cycle by Pratt is a crypto fiction classic. If you have not come across this series yet, they're really fun, sort of bringing back some titles that have fallen by the wayside. Another press that I really love for this kind of work is Valancourt. If you've not spent any time on their page, they republish horror and mystery books that have kind of fallen out of print or fallen out of favor. They also work on rediscovered LGBT titles. Really love their work. The Mountain in the Sea by Naylor is a recent science fiction book that focuses on creatures in the sea. Really fun read, really enjoyable. So spanning the gamut from crypto fiction that goes all the way back to something that is a little more recent. Some other science fiction, fantasy, horror adjacent octopi. I'm going with that for now. No one's here to correct me, so that's what we're going with. Tentacle by Indiana. This one is really different. It's very science fiction, very weird fiction, very different. Peter Benchley's The Beast. You may know Benchley from Jaws, and supposedly my friends that like their pulp animal creatures like myself have said that The Beast is the far superior book. Tidepool is another Cthulhu adjacent title, bringing in that mythos. So, Lovecraft, of course, we know has some issues with some of the things that he approaches, but he is being reimagined, reinvented, and revisited. I do want to end on an uplifting note for the octopus, which I do think we focus a lot when it comes to creatures in the natural world. If you read natural history like me, the last chapter of almost every single natural history book is, here's the terrible things that humans have done. So I wanted to end on an uplifting note and say that there is good being done for the creatures of the sea, right? There is coral that is being regrown in reefs. There is garbage that is being taken out of the ocean. Now, the question of how much we can do in the time that we have, that's something else, but it comforts me to know there are people out there doing good things for the creatures that we live beside and with. So I want to leave you with some uplifting, fun books in the end. So Lily and the Octopus by Rowley, very adorable read. And Weird is Beautiful, The Wisdom of Octopuses. Aha, it's not octopi. Now we know. So if you have someone in your life that enjoys these creatures, this is a really fun gift book to put in their hand. Really beautifully created, crafted book as well as uplifting. As always, I leave you with today's titles and some very handsome octopuses on the screen. I may have missed something crucial. If you think that there is something that should be added, please, as always, let me know. And as always, your reminder to support your local library, your local indie booksellers, and just your local booksellers if you are lucky enough to have them nearby. Finally, if there is a topic you would like to hear more about in the world of books, please do let me know. I would love to create an episode that you would look forward to. Or if you don't want a full episode, there's just something that you want to know if there are some good books out there about it. I would be happy to dig around and do some research and find what I can for you. As always, thank you for sharing your time with me. I hope that I have added some books to your reading list and maybe given you something to look forward to in terms of reading. As always, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at navalianlibrary@gmail.com or Books and Piles on Tumblr. Wishing you a wonderful week.